Something serious is going on between America and China. And no, it's not just about tariffs or trade deals anymore. This is turning into a battle for global power. From technology to money, politics to military, these two giants are going head to head, and the rest of the world is watching closely. What's really happening behind the scenes, and why is it getting so ugly? Let's break it down. For years, the US and China have been locked in a silent struggle. On the surface, it looked like a regular trade war. One country puts tariffs, the other responds. But over time, things started to shift. This isn't just about who sells more products anymore, it's about who leads the world. To understand this, we need to take a step back and look at how both countries have evolved over the past few decades. After World War II, the United States became the world's strongest economy. The dollar became the global standard, and American companies expanded everywhere. The US was the leader, shaping the global economic system and setting the rules for how trade and finance worked. For decades, America enjoyed this dominant position without much competition. But China was quietly rising. In the 1980s and 90s, it was mostly known for being a low-cost manufacturing hub. It made everything from clothes to electronics, selling cheap goods to the rest of the world. But that was just the beginning. Fast forward to today, and China is investing billions into advanced technology, building enormous infrastructure, and growing its global influence. It's challenging America in nearly every field, from artificial intelligence to military power, even space exploration. That's when the competition turned serious. In 2018, the US began hitting China with tariffs, claiming China was stealing technology and not playing fair. The US accused China of forcing American companies to hand over trade secrets in exchange for access to the Chinese market. In response, China started imposing its own tariffs, and this back and forth escalated into what many called a trade war. Billions of dollars were lost on both sides. Prices for everyday goods went up. American farmers who relied on China for exports faced major losses. Chinese factories, which produced goods for the global market, slowed down as their costs rose. At the time, many people thought this was just a temporary fight, something that would get sorted out in a few months. But the truth is, this was never just about trade. This was about something much bigger. The real issue between the US and China is about power and control. In the 21st century, the world is being shaped by technology, and both countries are fighting to dominate the tech sector. Let's dive into the tech war. When it comes to technology, China has made enormous strides in recent years. Take Huawei, for example. It's a Chinese company that's been leading the charge in building 5G networks and making smartphones. The US has consistently accused Huawei of being too close to the Chinese government and of potentially spying on foreign nations through its equipment. In response, the US banned Huawei from its networks and pressured its allies to do the same. China didn't take this lying down. It ramped up its efforts to become self-reliant in tech. It started developing its own chips, investing in artificial intelligence, robotics, and quantum computing. It also set up national programs to attract talent and encourage innovation. But here's the kicker: America isn't backing off either. In fact, the US has been actively blocking the sale of advanced computer chips to China. The US fears that if China controls the technology behind things like 5G and artificial intelligence, it could shift the balance of power globally. This is the new battleground, and it's becoming more critical every day. Whoever controls the tech of the future controls the global economy. It's a race to see who will dominate in everything from smartphones to self-driving cars to artificial intelligence that can predict everything from stock prices to health trends. But it's not just about who makes the best tech or who can build the fastest 5G network. The bigger issue is who controls data. Data is the new oil. It powers everything from social media algorithms to healthcare innovations. And China and the US are both scrambling to control data on a massive scale. China has already taken a huge lead in this area. Its surveillance state, using technology like facial recognition and massive databases, is far ahead of anything in the US. It has an enormous population, and its government can collect vast amounts of data on its people. This data is invaluable for both economic growth and political control. The US, on the other hand, has big tech giants like Google, Facebook, and Amazon that control vast amounts of data too. But these companies are being scrutinized by lawmakers and regulators, especially for how they handle privacy. The question is, who will control the future of data? That's where things get tricky. Then there's the money side of things. The US dollar has been the global reserve currency for decades. It's the currency that countries use to trade oil, gold, and other essential goods. But now China is pushing to change that. China has been promoting its own currency, the yuan, in international trade agreements. Countries like Russia, Brazil, and even some African nations are starting to use the yuan instead of the dollar in their transactions. And China is pushing for the yuan to be used more in global trade, especially in its Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to invest in infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and Europe. The idea is simple. If China can get more countries to use the yuan, it will reduce America's influence over global trade and finance. The US has responded to this by making sure the dollar remains the dominant currency for international trade. But if more countries stop using the dollar, it could have a huge impact on America's financial power. At the same time, both countries are competing for influence around the world. China's Belt and Road Initiative is a key part of this strategy. It's a global infrastructure project that involves billions of dollars in investments to build roads, bridges, ports, and railways in developing countries. In exchange, China gains influence in those regions. The US has responded by offering its own investment programs, trying to compete with China in these key areas. The competition for who can shape the future of global infrastructure is a huge part of this struggle. But the situation is even more dangerous when you look at Taiwan. Taiwan is a small island off the coast of China, but it holds massive significance in this fight. China sees Taiwan as part of its territory. The Chinese government has been very clear that it wants to reunify Taiwan with the mainland, and it's willing to use force if necessary. The US, however, supports Taiwan's democracy and its right to self-determination. The US has sold weapons to Taiwan to help it defend itself, and it has sent military ships through the Taiwan Strait, which China views as a direct challenge. The tensions around Taiwan have reached new levels recently. China has flown military aircraft near Taiwan's airspace, and the US has responded by increasing its military presence in the region. Leaders from both countries have warned each other not to cross certain red lines, but if anything were to happen in Taiwan, if China were to take military action, the situation could quickly escalate into a full-blown war. And that's not just bad for the US and China, it could have devastating consequences for the entire world. So why is everything getting uglier now? There are a few reasons. First, both the economies are under pressure. The US is dealing with high inflation, rising national debt, and political division. The government's focus is divided, and it's facing major internal challenges. China, on the other hand, is struggling with a housing crisis, slow growth, and youth unemployment. When countries face these kinds of pressures, they often look for an external enemy to unite people and distract from their problems at home. That's exactly what's happening here. Second, we're seeing a new kind of Cold War. This time, however, it's not just about nuclear weapons and military power, it's about technology, global influence, and money. The US and China are fighting to control the future of the world, and it's not clear who will win. And third, global trust is breaking down. Institutions like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and other global organizations are starting to lose their power. The US and China no longer trust these organizations to settle disputes or manage global challenges. Instead, both countries are building their own systems, creating their own alliances, and setting their own rules. The world is becoming more fragmented. This is having a huge impact on the global economy and how businesses operate. Shipping costs are rising, stock markets are more volatile, and everyday goods are becoming more expensive. It's already affecting people's lives, and if things continue to escalate, we could see even worse consequences. But the bigger question is, how does this affect you? Well, it's already affecting you. As tensions rise, you might start seeing higher prices on the products you buy. Electronics will get more expensive due to tariffs and shortages, companies will face more pressure to pick sides, and the global economy could slow down. Jobs might be harder to find, and wages might not go as far. If things keep escalating, you might also see more political and economic instability. The world is feeling the pressure, and we're all in this together. So, is there any hope for a peaceful resolution? Some experts believe that the US and China will find a way to cooperate. After all, both countries need each other in many ways. China needs access to American markets and technology, while the US needs Chinese manufacturing and investment. There's also the question of global stability. Both sides understand that if they push too far, it could result in serious consequences not only for them, but for the world. However, the road to cooperation is filled with obstacles. Mutual distrust runs deep, and both countries are determined to secure their positions as global leaders. In the end, it's hard to say where this is all headed. The relationship between the US and China is not just a diplomatic issue, it's one that will affect economies, politics, and everyday life across the globe. As tensions continue to rise, it's important for the rest of us to stay informed and prepared for any potential shifts that may impact the world we live in. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's important to stay up to date with all the developments, especially when it comes to understanding how global events shape the economy, politics, and our daily lives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.